Pakistan's Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani declared that the nation was at war with the militants. He termed it a war for our survival.
पर खात्मा करने के लिए और आवाम की सलामती को यकीनी बनाने के लिए फौज तलब कर ली गई है.
Nearly 4 million people have been displaced due to the conflict. The nation is divided over whether this war is really for our survival or is it being fought on American diktat. Before addressing this dilemma, we'll go back 4 decades and analyze the events that preceded the 1971 Indo-Pak War and eventually led to the fall of Dhaka. In 1962, China inflicted a crushing defeat on India, and in 1965, India again had to face humiliation at the hands of a much smaller Pakistan. India realized that its overt methods of subduing nations and achieving regional hegemony were doomed to failure. It switched to more covert means to achieve its goals. Hence, India decided to set up a new intelligence agency called the Research and Analysis Wing. The then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi directed Rameshwar Nath Kao, the head of the spy agency, to establish stronger links with its Israeli counterpart, the Mossad. The objective was to gain its expertise in the field of espionage and terrorism, directed primarily at Pakistan. The Mossad was an ideal intelligentsia for meeting Indian requirements, for it not only had vast experience in dealing with Palestinian organizations like PLO and Black September, but also shared India's hatred of Pakistan. It is essential to note what the then Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion had to say about Pakistan. The world Zionist movement should not be neglectful of the dangers of Pakistan to it, and Pakistan now should be its first target, for this ideological state is a threat to our existence, and Pakistan, the whole of it, hates the Jews and loves the Arabs. This lover of the Arabs is more dangerous to us than the Arabs themselves. For that matter, it is most essential for the world Zionism that it should now take immediate steps against Pakistan. Whereas the inhabitants of the Indian peninsula are Hindus whose hearts have been full of hatred towards Muslims. Therefore, India is the most important base for us to work from there against Pakistan. It is essential that we exploit this base and strike and crush Pakistanis, enemies of Jews and Zionism, by all disguised and secret plans. The Israeli Prime Minister in a speech mentioned his plans of cooperating with India a year before the cooperation actually started. After the setting up of RAW, both Israel and India initiated a campaign to destabilize Pakistan by supporting separatist insurgencies in the volatile East Pakistan. This support was primarily focused on the Mukti Bahini, a terrorist organization which wrought havoc in East Pakistan in the late 60s and early 70s. While substantial recruits of the Mukti Bahini belonged to the depraved and financially stricken classes of Bengal, RAW agents constituted the top brass of Mukti Bahini. The Mukti Bahini vigorously pursued a policy of genocide, butchering patriotic Pakistanis in Bengal and silencing every voice that was raised in support of Pakistan. On the political front, India backed Mujibur Rahman in its covert war against Pakistan. Mujib opposed the military operation and supported the Bengali separatist movement. He demanded provincial autonomy. The 6 points presented by Mujib in 1966 were virtually an indirect declaration of independence if implemented.
There is no administration. The people are obeying my order, not their order.
In 1968, the Agartala conspiracy was uncovered by the ISI, which accused Mujib of collaborating with India against Pakistan. He was subsequently arrested, resulting in large-scale protests from separatist supporters and politicians, including Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The mounting pressure led to his release, and his machinations against the state of Pakistan continued. Mujib's propaganda was effective enough to convince a significant portion of the public into believing that the separatist movement was in fact a justified struggle of rights. The Indian and Western media also aided in the spread of this idea.
One of the reasons why there is a Bangladesh today is the fact that troops from West Pakistan, Punjabis, savagely terrorized the Bengali population of East Pakistan. Perhaps 1 million people died. Here now is some blurry videotape taken 10 months ago, hidden since then, of how the terror began.
This slightly blurry amateur videotape.
It is interesting to note that the term Punjabi Army rather than Pakistani army is still used to malign it. The army came to be seen as a tool ruthlessly employed by the leaders of West Pakistan to quash the struggle. By 3rd December, massive Indian troop concentrations on the border of East and West Pakistan and continued violations of the international borders by India provoked Pakistan into a war. The 40,000 Pakistani soldiers along with a few thousand Razakars and Jamaat-e-Islami students fought against the 4 lakh strong Indian army supported by 100,000 terrorists of Mukti Bahini. The Indians had absolute air superiority in the east as the PAF had a single squadron in East Pakistan vis-a-vis 14 Indian squadrons. The nation was under a corrupt political and military leadership. Against such overwhelming odds, it was impossible for us to win the war. Pakistan surrendered on 16th December 1971. Dhaka had fallen. Today we face a somewhat similar situation. The enemy is using its tried and tested methods to destabilize Pakistan. In 1999, the American Naval War College came up with a plan to denuclearize Pakistan and ultimately redraw its boundaries in order to neutralize the threat of a nuclear Pakistan. In 2006, Ralph Peters published a world map with a much smaller Pakistan to achieve a better world in his view. To realize their dreams, a covert war with several layers of offences against the Pakistani state at different stages was launched. Post 9/11 drama, we saw the influx of American and NATO forces in Afghanistan. During this period, Pakistan made some critical blunders for which we continue to pay a heavy price. The CIA launched a massive search operation for Osama bin Laden and other Al-Qaeda operatives with consent of the Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf. The nexus of evil, that is CIA, RAW and Mossad, were then able to set up a vast network in Waziristan. The post-2002 Indo-Pak border tensions kept Pakistan too preoccupied on the eastern front and prevented it from keeping any strict watch on its western borders, where its military presence had always been sparse due to lack of any credible threat in the past. In 2005, Pakistan was pressurized into deploying troops on the western border to prevent cross-border movement of the freedom fighters. The Pakistani government acquiesced to the American demand. The army launched operations aimed at eliminating cross-border movement. The very move alienated the tribesmen who took up arms against the Pakistan army. The masses started viewing Pakistan as a state bereft of its own foreign policy and serving solely as America's lackey in South Asia. The nexus of evil exploited the situation they had created and started sending in hired Tajiks, Uzbeks and Afghans to fight Pakistan. Arms and training were also provided to them. The situation grew volatile. The American plan was to force Pakistan army to take action and start a civil war. Very soon the army, realizing the gravity of the situation, started signing peace deals with the tribes in order to ease tensions. Soon most of the tribes had been pacified when a wave of American drone attacks killed several of the tribesmen who had signed peace deals, turning the tribesmen against the state for leaving them at the mercy of USA. The situation became increasingly muddled.
देखिए, जितने भी निचले कैडरे के लोग हैं उनके अपने ख्याल में बड़े पुरखलूस लोग हैं, लेकिन होता यह है कि क़यादत हाईजैक की जाती है, क़यादत अगवा की जाती है, क़यादत खरीदी बेची जाती है। नीचे वालों को नहीं पता होता वो क्या कर रहे हैं। उन बेवकूफों को तो सच, देखिए आप, जब कोई इंसान खुद को हमला करता है तो वो जेन्युइनली बिलीव कर रहा है कि मैं जन्नत में जा रहा हूं। वो जेन्युइनली जनाजे पर जाके हमला कर रहा है, जेन्युइनली बेगुनाह मुसलमानों को कत्ल कर रहा है, वो ये समझ रहा है कि मैं जन्नत में जा रहा हूं, इसलिए कि उसको आइडियोलॉजिकली इतना मोटिवेट कर दिया गया है। हालांकि इनका जो लोग इनकी कैद से रिहा होकर आए, अगर आप इनके इंटरव्यूज करें तो वो आपको बताएंगे कि ये नमाज नहीं पढ़ते, कहते हैं कि हम जिहाद में हमारी नमाज माफ है। यानी इस हद तक इनको दिमाग इनका खराब कर दिया गया है कि वो इनको नाश्ता नहीं करते ये सुबह कि ये नाश्ता हम जन्नत में जाके करेंगे, हमें सुसाइड बॉम्बिंग करनी है। यानी इस हद तक इनको मोटिव, और ये सारी जो आइडियोलॉजी है, ये तकफीरी आइडियोलॉजी जो उम्मत मुस्लिमा को काफिर डिक्लेयर करके रियासतों, मुसलमान रियासतों के खिलाफ ऐलान जंग करना, इस आइडियोलॉजी के होते हुए हमें मजीद किसी और